right, mate, how you doing? Welcome back to another video. It's the end of the season. The Premier League season is done, and it's time, as ever, to review my pre-season Premier League predictions. How good was I? As always, we have a little bit of a ranking system here. I'll get a score based on my predictions at the end of the video. We can see, because I've been doing this for quite some time now, best part of a decade, we can see how good a year it was for me. Remember, the system is if I was one place out with a prediction, whether that's them doing better or worse than I thought, I get 1 point. If I was 10 places out, I get 10 points. You want as little points as possible. For context, my worst ever year was last year. We don't like to talk about it, but I got 84 points. Not great. 22-23 season. My best ever year was back quite a while ago now, 2018-19, when I got 44 points, almost half that. Could this year be my new best ever year? Let's find out. Starting off with the relegation places, I'll put all three of them right up for you. You can see one of them's wrong. You know, I got two of them right, albeit in different positions. I had Luton to go down. I had Sheffield United to go down. I also had Wolves to go down. And I have to hold my hands up here and say, Gary O'Neill, I got that one wrong. You know, you've done very well in there. I wasn't necessarily taking that factor in because they did have Lopetegui in there. He left in the summer. Obviously, he's joining my boys West Ham now. O'Neill was done dirty at Bournemouth. Clearly a decent manager because he's done well with Wolves. For me, they're built around a couple of players, and they were injured for or missing for a lot of this year, which is Neto and Hwang Hee-chan. Hope I've said that right. He obviously had Asian Cup duty. Neto's been injured a lot, but they've managed to deal with it. Cunha's been big. A couple of good players in there. Listen, sorry, I had Wolves to go down. They didn't. They were 4 places better than I said. They finished 14th. I said 18th. Sheffield United and Luton, I'm not going to go on about them too much. You know, Luton at one point looked like they were going to survive. Been a lot of talk about Sheffield United and how many goals they've put up, and is it one of the worst Premier League performances ever? Obviously, Derby have still got the record lowest points, but it's been pretty bad, hasn't it? And I think for two teams that didn't really strengthen massively in the summer, we can't really be surprised by this. Obviously, there's a glaring omission here with the team that I didn't get to go down, which is Burnley. We'll talk about them a bit more later when we get to them in the league table. It's all three promotion teams have gone down. Doesn't happen a lot. It's kind of a coward's prediction, I think, if you put all three promoted teams to go straight back down. But if you did it this year, you would have been right. So I got a +2 there for Luton, who actually finished 18th. Fair play to them for not finishing bottom. I think that's an achievement in itself. I picked up another point because I was 1 out with Sheffield United as well. They finished 1 worse than I thought they would. And Wolves, I was 4 out. Moving on, 17th, I had Fulham. Again, I think they impressed me this year. They lost Mitrovic in the summer. I wasn't sure where the goals were going to come from. Obviously, Muniz stepped up later in the season. Palhinha, they kept him as well. There was a point when he looked like he might leave. In general, I think they've done well with the squad they've got. I had them to finish 17th. I was 4 wrong. They finished 13th there. I knew they weren't going to go down, though. Forest, I had them to finish 16th. They finished 17th. They just survived. Obviously, they had a points deduction to deal with as well. So fair play to them. Although, should I say fair play? Because they weren't fair in their play because they cheated and got a points deduction. I don't know. Either way, they've done well to stay up. I think there was a bit of a gap, wasn't there, in quality between the 3 teams that did go down in the end and the ones that survived. It wasn't too tight a relegation race in the end, really. We've seen people go down in the last day. That didn't happen here. Bournemouth, I had to finish 15th. They finished 12th. They had a very good season. I think it's their highest season ever, or is it their record points total, or both? I'm not sure. Iraola, again, he came under a bit of a cloud for me because I wasn't really happy with the way, as I mentioned earlier, they got rid of O'Neill. But I have to back the ownership here because they went against the grain. They got rid of a popular manager who'd done a good job. And he also had a really bad start this season. Obviously, at the start of this season at least, Bournemouth were really struggling and they didn't pick up many wins in their first few games. A lot of managers would have been sacked under those circumstances. They stayed with him, and what a decision that seems to have been because he's got them cooking. Again, not an amazing squad for me. They're outperforming where they should be. They're greater than the sum of their parts, and that is a sign of a great coach for me. So well done to them. I've picked up 3 points for that one. Everton, I had them to finish 14th. They finished 15th. There was talk of the points deduction, but obviously it ended up happening. Then there was appeal. There was all kinds of things kicking off. Sean Dyche has done a great job here. If we're honest, we look at the stats. Now, without the points deduction, they would have finished a lot higher. And I think they're like right up there for clean sheets this season. I think not just Pickford, but the whole back line, like some Branthwaite coming through. We know Dyche teams are very defensively strong. There would have been plenty of excuses for him if they had gone down, put it this year. Lots of stuff going wrong off the pitch. But fair play to him, fair play to Everton. Safe once again in the Prem. Hopefully this is the start of a new beginning for them and they can kick on. But still, all that being said, my prediction was only 1 off. So it's not too bad. Next up, Crystal Palace. Now, I had them to finish 13th and they finished 10th. And what an end to the season they have had. A couple months ago, 13th would have looked about bang on for them. But they have been flying. You have to say, Glasner looks the real deal. Obviously, Eze and Elise key, but Mateta's been reborn. You know, if they can keep Elise and Eze particularly, I think with his management, that's clearly next level, they could really go places. They could use a few more players, sure. But I think there'll be an opportunity to sign good players this summer because people would have seen how they ended the season and they'll want to be part of that squad. So really exciting times for Palace. 3 points I picked up there. But again, I couldn't allow for this new manager and the effect he's had. That's why these predictions are challenging sometimes. Next up, though, this is the one that hurts me. It puts my score in a bit of jeopardy. Burnley. Looking at it now, it's easy to say, Spencer, you're a mug. You don't know anything about football. You had Burnley finishing 12th. Maybe I was wearing my Vincent Kompany coloured spectacles. I did used to work for him. I don't like to talk about it. But I do rate the man, and I think he's a good leader, and I think he'll still make a very good manager. That being said, in hindsight, they didn't really improve the squad. And is there a little bit of naivete there on behalf of Vincent to think that he can come in and play the same, or attempt to play, should I say, the same kind of positive football that got him up from the Championship so impressively with the same players or similar standard players that clearly are not going to get away with that in a Premier League with such good teams in it, including the likes of Pep, who is trying to emulate in a way. Maybe they've had a mare there. I hope he stays if he wants to stay. I think the ownership like him, and I think you can see why they've gone down. They haven't thrown money at it. It's much worse if you come in and throw loads of money at it. You're desperate to be in the Prem and it doesn't work out. But I always like to tip one promoted team to do well. This time I went with Burnley. In hindsight, I shouldn't have gone with any of them, but Luton would have been the safer bet. They at least did what they had to try and do to stay in the league. The odds were always against Luton, and they knew that. So they played their best hand, which is the kind of football that they went with. But yeah, lessons for Burnley to learn there, maybe for Vincent to learn there as well, and for me to learn there as well. It's a 7-pointer, with 7 places out. Not ideal. Moving on into Brentford, I had them to finish 11th. They actually finished 16th. Did I allow enough for the Tony factor? I think I did, but I thought when he came back, he was going to just be like an animal unleashed and smash it. In reality, he had a little spell when he came back, but he did drop off a little bit to the point now where I'm not 100% sure he will go to the Euros. I think he will, but I'm not sure he should. That's a whole different conversation. Maybe I'll do a video about my England squad later, but yeah, Brentford, ultimately it's a good season because they've stayed in the league and they had their best player out for a large part of the season. Whether he stays or not is another matter. But I was a little bit off with this one. It's picked up 5 points. It's not ideal at this stage. We need a good second half to this league table, okay? Going on into 10th position, I had my boys West Ham. They finished 9th. You feel one out, you've got to be pretty happy with that. I'm pretty happy with that, especially as it's my team. People often accuse me of being, too favourable, too biased to West Ham. Sometimes I think about that so much I get in my own head and I go too hard on them. But this one I've got more or less right. Obviously, Moyes leaving now. We've had a really bad end to the season where we've been battered. We could have probably finished a little bit higher than 9th. But the European campaign, a couple of injuries here and there. And then the end of the Moyes tenure, the bit of negativity around the club, maybe him losing the dressing room a little bit, has all attributed to a poor finish. But still only 1 point picked up for me there. So I'm happy with that prediction. Next up, in 9th, I had Brighton. Okay, they actually finished 11th. For me, anything between 9th and 12th is interchangeable. It can be such tight margins. Ultimately, I said they weren't going to make Europe, and they didn't make Europe. And part of the reason for that was I felt such a big turnover of players, some big players leaving in the summer, and they were playing European football, and that's a big distraction. And it has come true. It's actually affected them more than I thought it would. They finished 11th, not 9th. I pick up 2 points for that one. Villa. I had Villa to finish 8th. Of course, they have smashed it and got Champions League. And they've done it not only against huge teams with, much more expensively assembled squads, but they've also done it playing Thursday night Conference League football, which is really, really impressive. So I was 4 places out here. And for me, if I'm giving any awards out in this video, I said this on Sky the other day when I was on Saturday Social, I think manager of the season is Emery. I think the overachievers of the season are Villa. I think this is unbelievable. I think Emery has coached players. He's not actually signed that many players. Not many of them are his guys. There's a couple of people he's coached before, his previous clubs. But to make the difference to a squad you've largely inherited, think about where they were pre-Emery under Gerrard. It's unbelievable management from Emery. And I can't wait to see them in the Champions League. I think they deserve it. And well done, basically. 4 places out. I thought they'd have a good season, maybe get some European football if they're lucky with the coefficients. But they've smashed it. They've got Champions League, baby. 7th place, though. Much better. My first of today. And there will be some more. Exactly right. Newcastle, 7th. Now, at the time, this was a bit of an unpopular prediction. They'd just got Champions League football the year before. They were on the up. But I knew about the financial fair play obligations. They were not going to be able to spend and spend and spend. We knew about the Tonali ban coming in. And maybe I'm not saying I predicted all the injuries they were going to have because who can? but I knew they were playing European football. It's going to distract them a little bit. And I looked at the other teams and the other arguments, which I'll get onto in a minute. I fancied Newcastle for 7th. I got it exactly right. Damage limitation, no points picked up there. Good stuff. We move into 6th place. I had Tottenham to finish 6th. They ended up finishing 5th. Such a bad end to the season. I know they won on the final day, but they lost so many games in the last few months. They really should be looking at 5th as a bad thing because they could have gone better. They could have got Champions League. But again, I wasn't far out here. I felt Ange would have a positive impact. I felt the lack of European football would be good for them. Less games, less potential injuries. Obviously, they lost Son to the Asian Cup. Then Maddison, as predicted, had a few injuries as well. And I think Ange is a great fit for them. I think if they stay with him and back him, he'll make a really good culture there and they will win things eventually. Maybe need to have a look at their sort of high press attacking mentality. Either get better defenders, get better possession players in the middle of the park that allows them to be so aggressive, or just show a little bit of tactical nous to change things up in games. I love his approach. I think it's almost like computer game like, and it's going to get a lot of fans on side. When it goes wrong, it's stinky, let's be honest. Moving on, 5th place, I had Liverpool. Again, was that a bit of a weird prediction at the time? Did many people predict them to be this low? I was wrong. They finished 3rd, but I knew they weren't winning the league. I didn't know Klopp was going to leave at the end of the season. Obviously, none of us did, but I felt lots of change in their squad. I think there's more change coming, particularly with a new manager. We're going to see transitions and a lot of the old guard, maybe even more moving on. But I just didn't. I think there's other teams that were going to get ahead of them. And at this point, anything more than like 1 or 2 points picking up is quite bad because I like to think the top end of the table is a little bit easier to predict than the lower and the middle areas. So I'm a bit disappointed with this, but I'm happy at least I didn't have Liverpool right at the top. So 2 points for that one. In 4th, I had Chelsea, right? They ended up finishing 6th. Halfway through the season, this looked like a terrible prediction because Chelsea were just stuck, weren't they? Mid-table mediocrity. But Poch has got them cooking a little bit. He has started to gel them. Such a young squad. I can't even think about where I'm going to predict them next year. Who knows what's going to happen in the summer. I hope for their case, it's not a load of more changes and they just improve it in little areas, but back the boys they've got and the manager they've got. And that could be the best route for them. But I went 4th ultimately because I felt they had no European football and they had a squad that would only get better as the season went on. And I felt they could just creep in there. And ultimately, I wasn't miles away, was I, with this in the end? But we take it. The next one's a bit stinky. In 3rd, I had Man United. And honestly, I'm trying to think what I was thinking about here. I don't know what my angle was because they had European football as well. And I think I just thought it was going to click. I mean, I know they had a lot of injuries. They did. Their defence was just decimated throughout the season, and that's obviously hurt them. They had the Anthony issue. They had Sancho moving on and all that sort of off-pitch drama. But ultimately, this feels worse than my Burnley prediction for me, even though it's less points I've picked up. I picked up 5 points. They finished 8th, which, let's be honest, no Man United fan will be happy with. That's not where Man United as a club should be. They have to. It's embarrassing for them. They've got new ownership now, or new minority ownership in Radcliffe. See what he can do. Does he get a new manager? I don't know. But ultimately, when you get 3rd this wrong, it's not good. It's not a good look. I'm not happy with it. 5 points picked up there. The saving grace is I got the top 2 right. Arsenal, City, 2nd, 1st. Bang, bang. It could have changed on the final day. West Ham made sure it didn't. Thank you very much. Obviously, we had a little part to play. But City did it again. 4 Premier Leagues in a row. No one's ever done it before. It's unbelievable. They could still win more trophies, of course. They've got an FA Cup final. They've already got a Super Cup. They've got the Club World Cup. It's been a great season with the Premier League now as well. But it could be better with FA Cup win. But I'm happy with this. It's not that hard to predict City to win the league. But getting Arsenal 2nd once again, I thought they'd improve with Rice. I think that's clear that they have, even though they're finished in the same position. They ran City closer, definitely. They didn't lose to City this year, which is different. And I think that's really good sign of progress for Arsenal. I don't know really if you can ever really predict the end of this City era until either they get done for financial fair play and there's some repercussions, and or Pep leaves. Until that happens, you'd be a sensible man just to predict City to win the league every year, wouldn't you, really? It will come to an end eventually. Everything does. But these two are bang right. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Let's do the maths. Add all these points together. Remember, my worst ever score, you can see on the screen now all my previous predictions the last few years. My worst ever score was last season, 84 points. Terrible. My best ever score, 2018-19 season, 44 points. Have I done better than that? The answer is no, but I was very close. 48 points is my second best ever Premier League predictions. And I have to admit, when I was going through it, I didn't feel like it was that good. It's just there weren't too many stinkers. Like, I remember one year I was like, I don't know, it was like 13 positions out or something on Sheffield United. Like, it killed me. This year, my worst was 7 with Burnley. I had a couple 5s, couple 4s, lots of 1s and 2s in there, and 3 exactly right. So I actually think I can do way better than this. I actually think I could get a sub 40 season. Maybe it'll be next year. But ultimately, the amount of times I've done this, to get second best ever year, I'm really happy with that. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Let me know what you think is going to happen next season. Obviously, as we get to the back end of this year, I will do a Premier League predictions for next year as well. And any other videos you want to see from me, let me know. But not a bad season. And just a gentle reminder from me, if you haven't watched any hashtag videos for a while, get over, because we are going to America very soon to play for $1 million in a tournament with the likes of Balotelli, Aguero, massive names from the world of sport playing, and hashtag United. Also, we've re-signed Scotty Pollock for the tournament. If you're an OG of this channel, you know all about Scotty P. Remember the name. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one soon. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. Until next time, don't go changing.